The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 47 different alien species sat in their designated sections, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would have amazed any human observer. But today there were no humans present to witness this historic moment. Admiral Zeftar stood at the center podium, his blue-scaled hands gripping the speaking device. His species, the Vorthak, had ruled the eastern spiral arm for 3 centuries before the Great Peace began. Now his yellow eyes scanned the assembled representatives with something that looked almost like sadness. Members of the council, his voice echoed through the chamber, automatically translated into dozens of languages. We gather today to end an era that has lasted 1,000 Earth years. The time of peace is over. A murmur rippled through the assembled aliens. Some shifted nervously in their seats, while others leaned forward with interest. The crystalline hive mind representatives flickered with rapid light patterns, their form of excited discussion. For too long, Zeftar continued, we have allowed the humans of Earth to remain comfortable in their isolation. They have grown soft, weak, and dangerously unpredictable. Their refusal to participate in galactic politics, their dismissal of our trade agreements, and their complete lack of military development have become a threat to the stability of our galaxy. Ambassador Clixon of the Tentacled Coalition raised one of her many arms. Admiral, surely you remember the warnings from our ancestors? The humans were once the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Their return to warfare could mean… Exactly. Zeftar's voice rose with passion. They could mean everything. For 1,000 years we have been stuck in endless cycles of minor conflicts, trade disputes, and territorial disagreements. Nothing changes, nothing improves. We need the humans to either rejoin galactic society as the warriors they once were, or be eliminated as a variable we cannot control. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species argued loudly in favor of the declaration, while others worried about the consequences. The peaceful monks of Serenity the Six hummed their disapproval, while the Warhawks of the Crimson Nebula screeched their excitement. Zeftar raised his hand for silence. The decision has been made. As of this moment, the Galactic Council formally declares war on the human species of Earth. May their response prove they are worthy of the legends, or may their silence prove they are no longer relevant. The formal declaration was broadcast across all known space frequencies within the hour. The message was simple and direct. To the humans of Earth, your 1,000 years of peace end now. Prepare for war. The Galactic Council comes to test your strength or remove your weakness. On Earth, the first person to receive the message was Sarah Chen, a 25-year-old communications operator working the night shift at the Global Communications Center in Singapore. She had been monitoring deep space frequencies as part of her routine duties when the alien transmission came through. Sarah listened to the message 3 times, ran it through the translation protocols, and then did something that would become legendary in human history. She laughed. Hey Marcus, she called to her coworker. Come listen to this. Someone's playing a really elaborate prank. Marcus Rodriguez rolled his chair over and listened to the message. His reaction was similar to Sarah's. Aliens declaring war? Really, what is this, some kind of retro movie promotion? But protocol was protocol. So Sarah forwarded the message to her supervisor, who forwarded it to the Department of External Communications, who forwarded it to the Global Council, who forwarded it to the media. By the time the sun rose over Earth, the alien declaration of war was the top story on every news network. The responses from around the world were remarkably consistent. Laughter, confusion, and mild curiosity. In a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, regular customers gathered around the television as the news anchor read the declaration with barely controlled amusement. So let me get this straight, said Jake, a local mechanic. Some aliens we've never met are mad at us for being too peaceful, and they want to fight us to make us less peaceful. That's what it sounds like, replied Maria, who taught elementary school nearby. Honestly, my 6-year-old students have better logic than that. The coffee shop erupted in laughter. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Tokyo, office workers shared alien war memes during their lunch breaks. In London, comedians rushed to write new material about galactic politics. In New York, street artists began painting murals depicting confused-looking aliens trying to pick fights with humans who were too busy gardening to notice. The Global Council called an emergency session to discuss the alien declaration. President Chen Wei of the Earth Federation stood before the assembly with a barely straight face. Fellow representatives, she began, we have received what appears to be a formal declaration of war from something called the Galactic Council. Our xenobiology department confirms that the message is genuine and of alien origin. The assembly hall was quiet for exactly 3 seconds before erupting in laughter. Are we seriously discussing a war with aliens who are upset that we're too peaceful? Asked Representative Johnson from the North American Union. According to our analysis, President Chen continued, they seem to believe we were once great warriors who enforced galactic peace through the threat of violence. They want us to either become warriors again or be eliminated as an unpredictable element. Representative Nakamura from the Pacific Federation raised her hand. Madam President, with all due respect, what's our military even going to do? Fight with farming equipment and archaeological tools? More laughter filled the hall. The truth was, Earth's military had been converted to emergency response and exploration services centuries ago. The Global Defense Force existed mainly to deal with natural disasters, asteroid deflection, and search and rescue operations. Their most advanced weapons were designed for mining operations and space construction. I suggest we respond with our standard diplomatic message, President Chen said. Welcome them to Earth, offer them a cultural exchange program, and see what they're really after. Meanwhile, in space, Admiral Zeftar waited anxiously for Earth's response. He had expected immediate mobilization of human fleets, desperate pleas for mercy, or at least some kind of military posturing. Instead, the first human response to reach his flagship was a video message from a farmer in Nebraska. The elderly man stood in front of a red barn, wearing overalls and a wide-brimmed hat. Behind him, cows grazed peacefully in a green field. Well, howdy there, space folks, the farmer said with a friendly smile. Got your message about the war and all. I reckon that's your business if you want to fight, but we're pretty busy here with harvest season. If you're planning to visit, though, my wife makes a mean apple pie. And you're welcome to stay for dinner. The farmer tipped his hat and walked away, leaving the camera pointed at the grazing cows. Admiral Zeftar stared at the screen for a full minute before turning to his aide. What kind of species responds to a declaration of war with an invitation to dinner? Perhaps they didn't understand the message, Admiral. No, Zeftar said slowly. I think they understood perfectly, and that terrifies me more than any weapon ever could. As night fell on Earth, humans around the world went to sleep largely unconcerned about the alien threat. Some made jokes about their new cosmic neighbors. Others wondered what alien food might taste like, and a few entrepreneurs began planning alien-themed restaurants and tours. None of them seemed particularly worried about a war. 3 weeks after the declaration, the alien armada arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. 1,000 ships of various sizes and designs formed an impressive battle formation that would have struck fear into any military force in the galaxy. Admiral Zeftar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger on his screens. All ships report ready for battle, Admiral, his second-in-command announced. Long-range scanners show minimal defensive installations around Earth. A few orbital platforms, some communication satellites, and what appears to be a small mining operation on their moon. Zeftar frowned. This wasn't right. According to ancient records, humans had once commanded fleets that darkened entire star systems. Where were their battleships, their defense networks, their planetary shields? Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth, the communications officer reported. Put it through. Let's hear their surrender terms. Instead of a military commander or government official, the screen showed a cheerful young woman sitting at what appeared to be a customer service desk. Behind her, a sign read, Earth Global Communications, how can we help you today? Good morning. Or I guess it's good whatever time it is in space, the woman said brightly. This is Jennifer at Earth Communications. I understand you folks are here for some kind of conflict resolution? I have to tell you, our Department of Interstellar Conflicts was downsized about 600 years ago, but I'd be happy to transfer you to our Cultural Exchange Department, or I could take a message for our Historical Warfare Museum. They love talking to visitors about old military stuff. The communication channel fell silent. Every alien on the bridge stared at the screen. Finally, Zeftar managed to speak. We are here to wage war on your planet. Jennifer's smile never faltered. Oh, well, that's unusual. Let me check our protocols. She typed something on her keyboard. I'm showing that we'll need you to file a formal conflict request form first. It's mostly for insurance purposes, Would you prefer digital or traditional? Paper filing? We don't want to file paperwork, Zeftar shouted. We want to conquer your world. I understand your frustration, sir, and I want to help you today. Unfortunately, without proper documentation, I can't authorize any planetary conquering. But I can transfer you to our tourism board. They handle all incoming visitors, and I'm sure they can set up a really nice conquest-themed tour package for your group. The transmission ended abruptly when Zeftar's aide accidentally hit the wrong button in shock. Sir, the tactical officer reported, perhaps we should simply begin the invasion. Show them we're serious. Zeftar nodded grimly. Deploy the first wave. Target their major population centers. Surely that will get their attention. The first landing ships descended toward Earth's major cities. In New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other metropolises, alien craft touched down in public squares and parks. Heavily armed alien soldiers emerged expecting panic, resistance, or at least acknowledgement of their presence. Instead, they found something far more bewildering. In Central Park, Commander Vexhai of the Crimson Legion stepped out of his landing craft with his plasma rifle at the ready. He had conquered 17 worlds and had never seen anything like what greeted him. A crowd of humans had gathered, but instead of running in terror, they were taking pictures with small devices and pointing excitedly. Children were asking their parents if they could pet the aliens. Street vendors had somehow already set up carts selling I Survived the Alien Invasion t-shirts and Mars bar candy. Excuse me, said a polite voice behind him. Vexhai spun around, weapon raised, to find a small elderly woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Are you here for the cultural exchange program? She asked. I'm Agnes from the Park Services Department. We're so excited to meet you. Would you like some coffee? You look like you've had a long trip. Vexhai's mandibles clicked in confusion. This is an invasion, you should be afraid. Agnes looked at his impressive armor and weapon with interest rather than fear. Oh my, that's some fascinating technology you have there. Are you perhaps here for the Military History Museum? They would love to see your equipment. Very educational. Before Vexhai could respond, a young man approached with a tablet. Hi, I'm Tom from the mayor's office. Welcome to New York. Do you need visitor permits? The process is really simple, and we can get you set up with temporary IDs if you're planning to stay for more than 48 hours. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Tokyo, alien soldiers found themselves being bowed to respectfully by citizens who assumed they were part of some advanced cultural exchange program. In London, they were offered tea and biscuits by locals who thought they were performers in an elaborate street theater production. In Mumbai, the landing created such excitement that the local news stations began broadcasting live coverage of the First Contact Festival, complete with musical performances and food stalls that appeared as if by magic. Back on his flagship, Zeftar received increasingly confused reports from his ground commanders. Admiral, this is Major Kreltalk in London. The humans have. They've invited us to something called afternoon tea. They keep asking about our dietary restrictions and whether we prefer sugar or honey. Major Ixandar reporting from Berlin, sir. The local government has assigned us a tour guide and asked if we want to see their museums or their beer gardens first. Commander Hisrath in Sydney here, Admiral. The humans have organized a welcome barbecue. They're cooking something called shrimp and asking if we eat meat or vegetables. Sir, what are your orders? Zeftar's headache was getting worse. These are military operations. Stop accepting their hospitality and start conquering something. Sir, came the hesitant voice of Lieutenant Vorthak from Rome. We tried to capture the local government building, but they thought we were here for a security assessment. They gave us a complete tour, showed us all their emergency procedures, and asked if we had any recommendations for improvements. The Admiral slumped in his command chair. This was not how invasions were supposed to work. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, had been trying for hours to get access to the aliens. As the world's foremost expert on theoretical alien life, she was practically vibrating with excitement. Finally, she managed to corner Commander Vexhai outside a New York coffee shop where he was standing in apparent shock, while humans continued to treat him like a tourist attraction. Excuse me, she said, approaching carefully with her hands visible. I'm Dr. Vasquez. I study alien life, and I would absolutely love to interview you if you have time. Vexhai looked at her with confusion. Interview me? We're here to conquer your planet. That's fascinating. Elena pulled out a notebook. What drove your species to conquest as a social solution? Is it resource-based, cultural, biological imperative? This is incredible data. You're not afraid? Elena laughed. Afraid? This is the most exciting day of my career. We've been wondering about alien psychology for centuries. The fact that you've chosen warfare as a social interaction method is absolutely fascinating from an anthropological perspective. She began scribbling notes frantically. Tell me, is conquest a seasonal behavior? Do you have complex social hierarchies that require external conflict to maintain? Have you tried alternative conflict resolution methods? Vexhai found himself answering her questions despite himself. Her genuine curiosity was unlike anything he had experienced in his military career. As evening fell on Earth, the alien invasion had effectively turned into the world's largest cultural exchange program. Military commanders found themselves guests. At dinner parties, alien soldiers were being taught local games by children, and several interspecies friendships had already begun forming. Admiral Zeftar sat alone on his bridge, staring at reports that made no military sense whatsoever. His invasion force was being systematically welcomed, fed, and educated by the very people they were supposed to be conquering. Sir, his aide ventured carefully, perhaps we need a different strategy? Zeftar's laugh had no humor in it. What strategy could possibly work against people who respond to invasion with hospitality? On Earth, the evening news led with the story of humanity's first day of interstellar war. The general consensus seemed to be that it was going quite well, and everyone was looking forward to learning more about their new cosmic neighbors tomorrow. After a week of the most polite invasion in galactic history, Admiral Zeftar decided it was time for stronger measures. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, and either way they needed to understand that this was a serious military operation. Attention all units, he broadcast to his fleet. Begin Phase 2. Disable their power grids, jam their communications, and establish proper military control over their major cities. These humans need to understand that we are not tourists. The orders went out across the alien fleet, and within hours the escalation began. In major cities around the world, alien technology shut down power plants, blocked internet signals, and disrupted television broadcasts. Military checkpoints appeared on street corners, and alien patrols began marching through downtown areas with serious expressions and visible weapons. Surely this would provoke some kind of proper response. In Manhattan, the power went out at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. For most civilizations, this would have caused panic, chaos, and immediate demands for government action. Instead, something remarkable happened in New York City. Mrs. Patterson, who ran a small deli on 42nd Street, stepped outside and called to her neighbor. Hey, Mike. Power's out again. You thinking what I'm thinking? Mike, who owned the electronics store next door, grinned and disappeared into his shop. He emerged with several battery-powered speakers and a folding table. Block party? Block party. Within an hour, 42nd Street had transformed into an impromptu festival. Someone brought out acoustic guitars. Another person contributed a gas-powered grill, and families brought chairs and blankets from their apartments. The alien soldiers who had been stationed on the corner to maintain order found themselves surrounded by the aroma of grilled hot dogs and the sound of children playing street games. Commander Vexhai, who had been assigned to maintain martial control over this sector, watched in bewilderment as his fearsome military checkpoint was gradually surrounded by a neighborhood barbecue. Commander, one of his soldiers approached nervously. The humans keep offering us food. What should we do? Maintain your positions, Vexhai replied, though he was beginning to doubt his understanding of human psychology. This is obviously some kind of psychological warfare. An elderly man with a gray beard approached their checkpoint carrying a plate of food. You boys been standing there for hours. You must be hungry. I made extra burgers. We are occupation forces, Vexhai declared firmly. We do not require your sustenance. The old man smiled. Son, I was in the military once. Rule number 1, never turn down a good meal. These are grass-fed beef with locally grown vegetables. Best burgers in the city. Despite himself, Vexhai found the smell quite appealing. His species was omnivorous, and they had been eating military rations for weeks. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In London, when communications were jammed, people rediscovered the joy of face-to-face conversation. Pubs became meeting centers where neighbors who hadn't spoken in years began lengthy discussions about life, philosophy, and whether the aliens preferred tea or coffee. In Tokyo, the loss of internet connectivity led to the largest surge in board game sales in decades. Families gathered around tables to play cards and tell stories, while alien patrols found themselves being invited to learn traditional games like Go and Shogi. The aliens had successfully disrupted human technology, but instead of causing despair, they had inadvertently triggered a renaissance of human community connection. Dr. Elena Vasquez had managed to arrange a formal interview with Admiral Zeftar himself. They met in what had once been the United Nations building, now serving as an informal meeting place between human and alien representatives. Elena sat across from the imposing alien commander, her notebook ready and her eyes bright with scientific curiosity. Zeftar looked tired, confused, and somewhat defeated. "Admiral," Elena began, "I have to say, from an anthropological perspective, your species' approach to conflict resolution is absolutely fascinating. Tell me, how long has warfare been your primary method of social interaction?" Zeftar's yellow eyes narrowed. "This is not social interaction. This is conquest. We are here to either awaken your warrior spirit or eliminate you as a galactic threat." Elena scribbled notes enthusiastically. "Fascinating. So warfare serves both a testing function and an elimination function in your society. Have you considered that there might be other ways to achieve the same social goals?" "What do you mean?" "Well," Elena leaned forward, "you're clearly testing our capabilities and our social cohesion, but you're also learning about our culture, our technology, and our responses to stress. Isn't that exactly what peaceful scientific and cultural exchange would accomplish, but without the resource expenditure and risk of warfare?" Zeftar was quiet for a long moment. "But how would we determine strength without conflict?" "Oh, there are so many ways." Elena's enthusiasm was infectious. Athletic competitions, collaborative problem-solving, artistic achievements, technological innovation, social organization efficiency. On Earth, we measure strength in hundreds of different ways. Military power was just one option, and honestly, not a very good one for long-term social development. The Admiral found himself genuinely interested despite his confusion. "What do you mean, not very good?" "Think about it logically," Elena continued. "Military conflict consumes enormous resources, destroys infrastructure, eliminates productive population, and creates lasting social trauma. From a purely practical standpoint, it's one of the most inefficient ways to organize a civilization. We discovered that cooperative methods produce much better results with far less waste." As their conversation continued, Elena began to understand something that chilled her to the bone. The aliens weren't just testing humanity, they were desperately hoping humanity would solve their problems. "Admiral," she said carefully, "how long have your species been at war?" "The Galactic Council has been managing conflicts for over 3,000 years, Zeftar replied. "There is always some dispute to resolve, some territory to defend, some resource to fight over. And has it worked? Are your problems solved?" Zeftar's silence was answer enough. Elena felt a wave of sadness wash over her. "You're stuck, aren't you? Your entire galactic civilization is trapped in a cycle of conflict that doesn't actually solve anything, but you don't know how to stop. The human legends speak of warriors so powerful that the mere threat of their return kept the galaxy peaceful for 1,000 years. Zeftar said quietly, We hoped you could either eliminate our competition or show us how to fight better." "Oh, Admiral," Elena said softly, "I think I understand now. You weren't declaring war on us. You were asking for help." Meanwhile, across Earth, human communities were adapting to their occupied status with remarkable creativity. In Paris, alien checkpoints had become impromptu language exchange centers where humans taught aliens French while learning alien languages in return. In São Paulo, street musicians had begun incorporating alien patrol routes into elaborate musical performances, with alien soldiers accidentally becoming part of rhythmic percussion sections as their synchronized marching matched the beat of samba drums. In Cairo, children had invented games that involved alien soldiers as willing participants. teaching them ancient Egyptian games while learning about alien culture and technology. The occupation was failing not because humans were resisting, but because they were integrating the aliens into their daily lives so thoroughly that the concept of military control was becoming meaningless. Major Kreltok contacted Admiral Zeftar from his position in Berlin. "Sir, we have a problem. The humans have organized something called an Alien Integration Festival. They're teaching our soldiers local crafts, cooking, and music. Yesterday, 3 of my men learned to make bread, and they haven't stopped talking about it. Discipline your troops, Major. Sir, with respect, the humans are teaching us things our military training never covered. Private Hexavel can now play something called a guitar, and his morale has never been higher. The locals have also shown us more efficient ways to organize our supply lines. Their suggestions have improved our operational efficiency by 30%. Zeftar rubbed his scaled forehead. "Major, are you telling me that our invasion force is being improved by the people we're supposed to be conquering?" "Yes, sir. And, sir, they've invited the entire unit to something called a beer garden tomorrow evening. Apparently, it's a cultural tradition for building social bonds between different groups." As night fell on Earth, Admiral Zeftar stood alone on his bridge, looking down at the planet that was systematically dismantling everything he thought he knew about civilization, conflict, and power. His aide approached cautiously. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from all sectors. The occupation is, well, sir, it's working perfectly. Too perfectly. The humans are cooperating completely, but they're also changing our soldiers. Changing them how? They're happier, sir. More creative. They're learning new skills, forming friendships, and several have requested to extend their deployment. Commander Vexhai has learned to make something called pizza and says it's the most satisfying thing he's ever accomplished." Zef Tar looked out at the blue world below and realized that humanity had already won this war. They just hadn't bothered to tell anyone. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Zara Kim, a communications specialist in Seoul, had been working with alien technicians to repair the communication jammers that were supposed to be keeping humans isolated. Instead of resenting the occupation, the local tech workers had enthusiastically joined the project, eager to learn about alien technology. "This is incredible," said Dr. Park, a Korean engineer who was examining alien communication equipment. "Your signal processing is at least 2 centuries ahead of ours, but your power distribution is surprisingly inefficient. What if we tried routing the energy through these secondary circuits?" The alien technician, a creature called Vorthka, looked puzzled. "You want to improve our military equipment?" "Well, yes," Dr. Park replied as if it were obvious. "If we're going to use it together, it should work as well as possible, right?" As they worked together, Zara noticed something odd. The alien communication systems weren't just jamming Earth signals. They were also receiving massive amounts of encrypted transmissions from across the galaxy. With Dr. Park's help and Vorthka's gradually willing assistance, she began decoding some of these messages. What she found changed everything. The first message she cracked was from a species called the hegemony, reporting massive resource shortages due to a territorial war that had been going on for 37 years. The second was from the Crystal Collective, begging for mediation in a trade dispute that had escalated to the point of planetary bombardment. The third was from a desperate coalition of smaller species asking for help with refugee crises caused by endless conflicts. Message after message painted the same picture. The galaxy was drowning in warfare, and nobody knew how to stop it. Zara brought her findings to Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had become Earth's unofficial liaison with the alien forces. Elena read through the translated messages with growing horror and understanding. "They're not invading us," Elena whispered. "They're drowning, and they're hoping we'll throw them a life preserver." Elena immediately requested another meeting with Admiral Zeftar. This time she came armed with translations of his own fleet's communications and a new understanding of what was really happening. They met in Central Park, where the alien command post had been set up next to a playground. Children's laughter mixed with the sounds of alien soldiers learning to play basketball from local teenagers. "Admiral," Elena began, "I need to ask you something directly, and I need you to answer honestly. How long has your galaxy been at war?" Zeftar's shoulders sagged. "Which war?" "All of them. Any of them. When was the last time your species, or any species in the Galactic Council, experienced genuine peace? The alien commander was quiet for a long time, watching human children teaching his soldiers to use playground equipment. My great-great-grandfather lived during the last period of what we called reduced conflict. It lasted for 18 months. Elena felt her heart sink. Thousands of years of continuous warfare. Not continuous, Zeftar corrected. We have treaties, ceasefires, periods of negotiation. Sometimes conflicts are resolved for decades before new ones begin. But peace, actual peace, no. I don't think any living being in our galaxy has ever experienced true peace. And the human legends? Zeftar's yellow eyes met hers. 1,000 years ago, humans appeared in our galaxy like a force of nature. Your species fought wars that lasted days instead of decades. You ended conflicts instead of managing them. When you defeated an enemy, they became your allies. When you conquered a world, its people became your citizens with equal rights. Elena listened with fascination and growing sadness. Most importantly, Zeftar continued, you fought wars to end wars, not to continue them. Within 50 years of your arrival, the entire galaxy was so afraid of human military power that peace became preferable to conflict. Then you vanished. You pulled back to Earth and never returned to space. For 1,000 years, the threat of human return kept the peace. But the threat couldn't last forever. Without humans to enforce it, the old patterns returned. Gradually at first, then completely. Now we are trapped in cycles of conflict that produce nothing but exhaustion and death. We declared war on Earth hoping for one of two outcomes. Either you would destroy us and end our suffering, or you would return to space and restore order to our chaos. Elena was quiet for several minutes, processing this information. Around them, the sounds of human-alien cooperation continued. A group of alien soldiers were learning to garden from elderly humans, while children taught young aliens how to ride bicycles. Admiral, Elena said finally, I think I understand your problem, and I think I know why your plan isn't working. Please explain. You're looking for the wrong humans. The humans who left your galaxy 1,000 years ago don't exist anymore. We evolved. Zeftar looked confused. Evolved how? Elena gestured toward the mixed groups of humans and aliens around them. Those legendary human warriors you remember? They weren't our final form. They were just a phase in our development. We learned something during those years of galactic warfare that your species never had the chance to learn. What did you learn? We learned that winning wars isn't the same as solving problems. You can defeat an enemy without eliminating the conditions that created the conflict. We discovered that the most powerful victory is the one that makes future wars unnecessary. Elena pulled out her tablet and showed Zeftar some images. Look at these statistics. Earth hasn't had a major conflict in over 800 years. Not because we became weak, but because we became something better. We learned to solve the problems that cause wars before they become wars. How? Resource distribution, social organization, conflict resolution, education, cultural exchange, psychological development. We solved war the same way we solved disease and hunger, not by fighting it, but by understanding it, and creating systems that make it obsolete. Zeftar stared at the images of Earth's social development charts. But surely you must still have conflicts. Disagreements? Competition? Elena laughed. Of course. We have debates, sports competitions, artistic rivalries, scientific races to solve problems first, even heated arguments about the best way to grow tomatoes. But we learned to separate conflict from violence, competition from destruction. She pointed to a group of humans and aliens who were engaged in what appeared to be a friendly but intense debate about engineering principles. Look at them. They're competing to see who can design the best solution, not trying to eliminate each other. The Admiral watched the mixed group with fascination. He could see the competitive energy, the passionate disagreement, but also the underlying respect and cooperation. You're telling me, Zeftar said slowly, that humans developed beyond the need for war? Not beyond conflict, beyond destructive responses to conflict. War was just one tool for dealing with problems, and we discovered it was a very poor tool, like using an axe when you need a scalpel. Elena leaned forward. Admiral, your galaxy isn't looking for warriors. You're looking for teachers. You need someone to show you how to solve problems without destroying everything in the process. That evening, Elena presented her findings to the Global Council in an emergency session. The revelation that the alien invasion was actually a desperate cry for help changed everything. President Chen Wei addressed the assembly with unusual gravity. Fellow representatives, we are facing a unique situation in human history. An entire galaxy is asking for our help, not our military might. Representative Nakamura raised her hand. Madam President, are we equipped to handle galactic-scale social problems? Our own civilization took centuries to develop these solutions. That's exactly why we're qualified, replied Dr. Singh from the Social Development Council. We understand both sides of the equation. We remember what destructive conflict looks like, and we know what peaceful problem-solving requires. Most importantly, we know the transition is possible because we've done it. President Chen nodded. I propose we offer the Galactic Council something unprecedented. Not military intervention, but comprehensive social and technological assistance. We helped them learn what we learned. The vote was unanimous. Back in space, Admiral Zeftar received an official message from Earth's government. As he read it, he felt something he hadn't experienced in his entire military career. Hope. To Admiral Zeftar and the Galactic Council, the message read. We accept your challenge, but not in the way you expected. Instead of meeting your declaration of war with violence, we invite you to join us in declaring war on war itself. Earth offers to share our social technologies, our conflict resolution methods, and our path to sustainable peace with any civilization willing to learn. The first step is to stop fighting each other long enough to try something different. Zeftar called his senior staff together and shared the message. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Sir? His aide asked quietly. What do we tell the Galactic Council? Zeftar looked out at the blue world that had just offered to save his entire galaxy from itself. We tell them that we found something better than the warriors we were looking for. We found teachers. The war that was supposed to test humanity's strength had instead revealed something far more powerful: humanity's wisdom. The transformation began with a simple invitation that would become legendary throughout the galaxy. The people of Earth cordially invite the Galactic Council and all member species to attend the first Interstellar Peace Conference, the message read. Come as warriors, leave as neighbors. Duration 1 Earth month. Bring your conflicts, your grievances, and your willingness to try something completely different. Admiral Zeftar received the invitation while reviewing casualty reports from the latest border skirmish between the Hegemony and the Crystal Collective. 0 casualties on both sides. Not because the fighting had stopped, but because both fleets had gotten distracted by reports from Earth about their soldiers learning to cook and play music. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're receiving acceptances from 46 of the 47 Council species. The Warhawks of the Crimson Nebula are hesitant. Zeftar wasn't surprised. The Warhawks had built their entire culture around the concept of glorious battle. The idea of peace would be deeply threatening to their identity. Send them a personal message, Zeftar decided. Tell them that Earth's humans have promised to show them what real strength looks like. Challenge their pride. The response came back within hours. The Warhawks accept this challenge. We will prove that warfare is the supreme test of strength. 2 weeks later, representatives from across the galaxy began arriving on Earth. The logistics were staggering. 47 different species with varying atmospheric, gravitational, and dietary requirements. But humanity approached the challenge with the same cheerful competence they had shown during their occupation. Temporary habitats were constructed in major cities around the world, each designed specifically for different alien physiologies. Translator programs were updated and distributed freely. Most importantly, each delegation was paired with human host families and cultural guides. The Warhawks arrived in New York with great ceremony, their crimson ships landing in Central Park with displays of aerial prowess that drew crowds of appreciative humans. Commander Vraktar, their delegation leader, stepped out of his ship expecting to meet military officials or government representatives. Instead, he was greeted by Martha Washington, no relation to the historical figure despite her name, a 73-year-old retired schoolteacher who had volunteered to be the Warhawks' cultural guide. Welcome to Earth. Dear? Martha said warmly, completely unfazed by Vraktar's impressive armor and fierce appearance. I'm Martha, and I'll be helping you get settled. I understand your people appreciate strength and valor, so I thought we'd start your visit with a trip to the Firefighter Training Academy. Our emergency responders would love to meet warriors from space. Vraktar was prepared for many things, but not for a small elderly human, woman who spoke to him like a favorite grandchild. The firefighter academy visit changed everything for the Warhawks. They watched human firefighters charge into burning buildings to save strangers, saw emergency medical teams risk their lives to help accident victims, and observed search and rescue workers who spent days looking for missing hikers in dangerous terrain. "This is warfare?" Fraktar asked in confusion as he watched firefighters practice rescuing people from a collapsed building simulation. "This is strength," Martha replied. "They fight fires, disasters, and death itself. Every day they go to war against the things that threaten life. The enemy isn't other people, it's danger, suffering, and loss." For a species that had spent millennia believing that fighting other warriors was the highest form of strength, the concept of fighting to protect rather than to conquer was revolutionary. Meanwhile, across the globe, other delegations were having their own transformative experiences. The Tentacled Coalition, a species of highly logical beings, were hosted in Geneva, where they were introduced to Earth's conflict resolution systems. Dr. Andreas Müller, a former international mediator, walked them through actual case studies of how humans had resolved territorial disputes, resource conflicts, and cultural disagreements without violence. "You see," Dr. Müller explained, "the key insight was realizing that most conflicts are actually about underlying needs, not the surface-level demands. When two groups fight over territory, they're usually fighting about security, resources, or identity. If you can address those underlying needs, the territorial dispute often resolves itself." Ambassador Klickson, the coalition's leader, studied the charts and data with fascination. "Your success rate for permanent resolution is remarkable. In our experience, conflicts merely pause and then resume." "That's because you're treating symptoms instead of causes," Dr. Müller replied. "It's like putting a bandage on an infection. The wound might look better temporarily, but the underlying problem continues to grow." The crystalline hive mind was perhaps the most startled by their Earth experience. As a collective consciousness, they had assumed that individual-based species like humans would be chaotic and inefficient. Instead, they were hosted by the Consensus Building Institute in Massachusetts, where they observed how humans could achieve collective decision-making while maintaining individual identity. Dr. Sarah Chen, not the president, but another Sarah Chen, humans, the aliens learned, were not as unique in their naming as other species, demonstrated human group dynamics using a town hall meeting about a local infrastructure project. "Watch how they process multiple perspectives simultaneously," Dr. Chen explained to the crystalline observers. "Each individual maintains their unique viewpoint, but they're able to build collective understanding through structured dialogue." The hive mind representatives watched in amazement as humans debated, disagreed, found common ground, and ultimately reached a consensus that incorporated elements from multiple opposing viewpoints. "Your species achieves collective intelligence without surrendering individual consciousness," observed Primary Crystal Vortex. "This should be impossible according to our models." "Maybe your models need updating," Dr. Chen suggested gently. "Individual creativity and collective wisdom aren't opposites. They're complementary." But perhaps the most significant transformation occurred with Admiral Zeftar himself. He was hosted by the small town of Harmony, Kansas, population 3,847, where he stayed with the Johnson family, 2 teachers, their 3 children, and their grandmother who had lived through Earth's last military conflict as a child. On his first morning, Zeftar woke to find 10-year-old Emma Johnson building something elaborate with colorful blocks in the backyard. "What are you constructing?" he asked, genuinely curious. "A peace treaty," Emma replied seriously. "My brother Jake wants to build a fort and I want to build a garden. So we're making a peace treaty that lets us both use the yard." Zeftar watched, fascinated, as this human child approached conflict resolution with more sophistication than most galactic diplomats. Emma and Jake negotiated terms, made compromises, found creative solutions, and ultimately designed a shared project that satisfied both their needs. "Who taught you this process?" Zeftar asked. Emma looked confused. "Nobody taught me. It's just how you solve problems, right?" That evening, Zeftar sat on the Johnson family's front porch with Grandma Rose, who was 91 years old and had volunteered to share her memories of Earth's transition to peace. "I was young during the last big conflict," Rose told him, rocking gently in her chair, scared, angry, certain that fighting was the only way to solve anything. Then I watched my generation discover something beautiful. What did you discover? That winning and being right are two different things. You can win a fight and still be wrong about the solution. We learned to care more about solving problems than about being the ones who solve them. Rose pointed to her garden, where vegetables grew in neat rows. You see that tomato plant? If I try to make it grow faster by pulling on it, I'll kill it. But if I give it good soil, proper water, and patience, it grows strong on its own. People are like that too. You can't force them to be peaceful, but you can create conditions where peace is easier than conflict. The month-long conference culminated in what became known as the Harmony Accords, not a treaty, but a comprehensive educational and cultural exchange program. Species that had been enemies for centuries agreed to try human-style conflict resolution methods. Ancient territorial disputes were submitted to mediation processes. Resource conflicts were addressed through cooperative development programs. Most remarkably, the Galactic Council chambers themselves were transformed. The circular arrangement of species-specific sections, designed to emphasize differences and maintain defensive positions, was replaced with mixed seating arrangements that encouraged interaction and collaboration. The Warhawks of the Crimson Nebula underwent the most dramatic transformation. Commander Vraktar returned to his homeworld with a new understanding of strength and immediately began reorganizing their military into an emergency response force. Instead of conquering worlds, they began specializing in disaster relief and rescue operations across the galaxy. "We are still warriors," Vraktar announced to his people, "but now we fight for life instead of against it." The transformation wasn't immediate or universal. Some conflicts continued, and some species resisted the new approaches. But for the first time in galactic history, there was an alternative to endless warfare.